What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. And today, it's another anniversary. Which one? The 35th anniversary of Always. This is also known as that Steven Spielberg film that you forgot he directed, but you need to watch in order to be a completionist when finishing out your Spielberg catalog. Let's face it, it's not generally the first Spielberg film most film buffs usually watch. It's towards the end, typically, of the filmography of his. So, um, yeah, it's directed by Steven Spielberg. Not one of his classics. It's literally like this in like 1941 or like the two where people are like, I don't know about those two. It has a 6.4 on IMDb, which I feel like is largely due to Spielberg fans. And trying to pull up his IMDb score a little bit. Has a 50 Metacritic score, which tracks. That's about where I would guess it should be. This does have audio description done by Post House, so it's good. It's a high quality audio description. I thought it was really nice. Um, and this has the distinct honor of being Audrey Hepburn's final film. So look at that. I really enjoyed that because I knew she had done a bunch of sort of like random films in the 80s. And I kind of feel like I've missed most of them, but I'm glad that her last one was something that was at least worth watching for one reason or another. It's always difficult now in 2024 to talk about Richard Dreyfus anymore, especially as an LGBT film critic. It's I don't know what to do with this dude. Just to be totally honest, Richard Dreyfuss used to be one of my favorite actors, like straight up. And I think a lot of people like Dreyfus was the shit back in the day, you know. And it's so many great performances. He worked with the best directors. You know, all those Oscar nominations he accumulated throughout his life. I mean, I've seen like The Goodbye Girl. I think he's fantastic in that. Um, he's worked with Steven Spielberg already two times before he does this because they worked together on Jaws and they worked together on Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So this is his third and final time working with Steven Spielberg. In the 90s, Mr. Holland's Opus is, even with Dreyfuss's views and opinions on life, I can't shake the way that movie makes me feel, and how much that drove such a huge part of my life. Um, and Still, I feel like very personally connected to that film. So I have a very hard time with who he is now and doing that separation from art from artist, because he just seems to be like going just hard on trying to piss off as many people as humanly possible. Just, I don't know, even the stuff that's not even homophobic and transphobic is stuff that's like, I should be able to play Othello. What? Why? First of all, no, you're old. Second of all, like, no. Stop advocating for, there are like thousands of roles that you could play, dude. Like thousands, millions of roles you could play. What the fuck do you want to play Othello? You know? Anyway, so yes. Yeah, this is a Richard Dreyfuss movie. It's also Holly Hunter. It's the second time they've worked together that I'm aware of after um, once around. So they've been on screen together before. John Goodman is here. He's getting elevated. This is when people are taking him seriously before he gets cast in Roseanne. He's proving himself as an actor, doing stuff like Raising Arizona, Always he's making his stamp sort of on the film community. We've got uh, Brad Johnson who technically would be the third lead. He arguably has a bigger role than John Goodman, but in terms of like the poster and everything, Brad Johnson is not the one that's on the poster or gets third billing, because his career basically just sent him to Melrose Place, and he never really fully recovered, which is why you're like, Brad who? Melrose Place fans are like, yeah, that guy. I know who that is. Everybody else is like, I don't know who that is. I didn't know who that was. And then I looked it up and I was like, oh, Melrose Place. And then what? I'm sure there's an interesting Brad Johnson story here, but it's just not. I mean, like, you look at the four of them and you're like, one of these things is definitely not like the others. In terms of, although John Goodman is long overdue an Oscar nomination. So much so that when he was in 10 Cloverfield Lane and his performance was like reminiscent of the possibility of an Oscar nomination, people were like, please, can we please nominate him? Like, it should have happened already. So I think if he just finds himself in a role in the right film, I feel like people want to nominate him for an Oscar. So I keep thinking that I had him this year for my Emmy predictions for Righteous Gemstones. I thought people would finally, since we alleviated ourselves of some of those shows that were taking up a lot of oxygen, I was like, I think he might slide in for supporting actor for Righteous Gemstones, and he didn't. So solid cast. This one doesn't feel like it's a Spielberg film. It's it's a remake of a film from the early 40s. And it centers around a pilot a firefighter pilot. I don't know what they call these people. The people who drop the stuff over fires, to put them out, stop them from spreading, that kind of stuff. And Dreyfus plays Pete, who's a little bit of a daredevil. He likes to go and do things live a little dangerously, live a little bit on the edge. And Holly Hunter's his girl. I love when they use those terms. You're my girl. All right. John Goodman's his best friend, Al. They do start talking about this school where they would train sort of like the next generation of pilots. No, Pete he just loves the action. He's in there for the action. And Holly Hunter's worried about, what's going to happen to him. And there's sort of a large chunk of the movie is spent on her quote unquote birthday, which is not actually her birthday, because Pete's an oddly wonderful and terrible boyfriend at the same time. He buys her this dress and they dance to their favorite song. And like part of it's romantic, but at the same time, it's actually not her birthday. He was like a day off. Okay. I mean, at least acknowledge the fact and be like, I wanted to surprise you by doing this a day early, because that's the kind of guy I am. The surprise is everything. I mean, like, I feel like there's a way that his character could have worked that, but he didn't. Anyway, it's there's a singer in the background, and the audio description does a really good job of tracking this pilot singer who's singing for them in the background as they dance. And she wants to fly. He's like, no, you can't fly. And meanwhile, she's like, well, you fly dangerously, and it has me worried. And he's like, I'm going to keep doing what I do. So he's typical Dreyfus. Typical, like, I'm a dude. I do what I want. So he makes for a really odd romantic lead here, but the whole film hinges on his ability, as the audience's ability to be like, oh my God, star-crossed lovers, how could these two have ever been separated? These two were meant for each other. You know, I mean, like, it's one of those, like, deep relationship things where you just have to buy into it. So there's an accident. Pete dies. It's not really a spoiler. The whole film is literally about Pete's death. It's, he becomes a ghost, and he meets Audrey Hepburn, who plays a character called Hap, who kind of is his shaman guide in the ghost world of how to do this, and is answering questions. I think he's like in a field somewhere, and he's like, "How long have I been here? 6 months. Okay." You know, like he's just, it's, well, time for you to go do your, and so he gets sent back, and basically what she suggests is that every pilot has always had somebody like him with them, and they've just never known that, but there's always been somebody who's been more experienced, which means who was doing his job when Dreyfus did the stunt that got him killed. You know what I'm saying? Like who it was in his ear then? Which ghost? Dreyfus should be able to meet his own ghost and be like, "You're the guy, huh? You're a guy that was in. So I didn't actually fly. You were flying for me, and somebody else was flying for you." And it gets kind of silly when you think about it, because then it's like, well, but who flew for the first pilots? Because it's not like pilots have been around forever. So at some point, you can only go back just so far in terms of generations of doing what Audrey Hepburn's suggesting in this film. Anyway, we'll move on from this. Um, but he goes back, and uh, he ends up being attached to this new, uh, I want to say cocky, but I feel like the only reason he's cocky is because Richard Dreyfuss is the ghost that's attached to him, because he's kind of quiet otherwise. And then a lot of times when Dreyfus will say something or whisper something in his ear, he just like word vomits it out. And then so he ends up being a lot cockier than he's supposed to be. But he's not really that cocky of a character otherwise. Like it's almost like he's trying to mimic and like be half Richard Dreyfuss, half himself. It's a very weird performance. It's a very weird character that I don't think the movie was even that invested in. But it's a way for Dreyfus to, I don't know, quote unquote, mentor somebody like he's supposed to be doing. But as the film progresses, you sort of realize that he's really supposed to be giving himself closure and give Holly Hunter closure so that she can move on with this new guy who is so deathly boring. Just in this film, when you got three strong actors and Brad Johnson just loses. He's, I don't know. He was written as like nothing, and I kind of feel bad for him, and I kind of understand why his career didn't benefit. Plus, this film was not a box office hit. It opened at Christmas to like $3 million. However, and this is the thing that people keep missing. They'll be like, "Oh, how did it do?" Well, it opened like $3.5 million. What was its final? Oh, like 45. I'm like, my God. My Jesus. You know, we always talk about like multipliers in terms of box office. I don't usually do. I used to do box office multipliers more when I was doing uh when I was actually like fully running my website, everything sided. I used to care more about box office. Now I just kind of focus a lot on accessibility in film. But that's one hell of a multiplier for anybody who has ever like that's a fantastic multiplier. You want to talk about legs? That film had legs. It opened to $3 million. Of course, that's like, you know, I don't know, like but we didn't have. This was sort of, we did have multiplexes. I'm not gonna say we didn't have multiplexes in 1989. They weren't necessarily as like the proliferation of them wasn't so extraordinary as it is today with like 30 plexes like every 500 feet. um, which are now suffering due to lack of product and are having to like play like anniversary releases and stuff because they're like, we have too many screens. Um, yeah, so there used to be a lot of like, this was the age of a lot of like 4, 5, 6 screen theaters. So I mean, there were like mini multiplexes, not in the way that you would think of today, where you walk in and there's like 10 screens of one film on opening weekend of the big new release, takes up like half the theater, but you can see it like every 15 minutes. It starts like a new one. Um, so yeah, $3 million legging out at 45. That's I think people in 1989 were vibing with this. So that's the opinion that I get from this. Although it has like no awards at all until the Saturn Awards, which gives it like a Blu-ray nomination. It's just it like the Saturn Awards were the only people who picked up anything for this. It just escaped everybody as a Spielberg film. So yeah, I feel like this is such an odd film. Uh, I wish in 1989, I was 6 and a film like Always just didn't really spark my interest to know anything about it. But I kind of wish I could like time travel to be like, what was happening with this movie? Because there's so many interesting things when you think about just the mechanics of how this film works. And you got a legendary director, you've got a great cast. What happened? Did they even try for Oscars? How did this not get anything anywhere from any critics group? But yet it's released during what we would normally consider Oscar season. It's not really a Christmas movie. It's not really set at Christmas. It's not really a happy movie. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a very odd film. Uh, Everything about this is odd. So this kind of stands, like I said, what this film is this a film that people need to fill their Spielberg card, your dance card. Um, you're missing that one Spielberg movie, and it's either 1941 or Always, and you got to get it checked off if you want to be able to say I've seen every Spielberg film. Uh, and yeah, so this is one of the ones towards the end, but I'm seeing it because of the anniversary release that timed up. So that's how it forced me to watch this. But yeah, this is my first time watching Always. Uh, I don't know that this is standing the test of time. I don't know that anybody cares. I think the only reason people care is because of the director that's attached to this. Or if you're a huge fan of one of the actors, and you're just like deep diving on Holly Hunter and you're like, I want to watch every Holly Hunter movie ever. Great. Good for you. She's a great actress. And she's good in this for everything except for this dumbass thing that they give her character to do, which is she just like she she lays in bed and she lists off random things that like she might find in a grocery store. And it is so bizarre and dumb. It is one of the dumbest jokes that anybody has ever put into a film. Like, I hated it, and Holly Hunter doesn't even do it well. Like, the gag of her doing it doesn't even come across well, and they didn't even pick things that somebody might mumble in their sleep. She's like full on saying things like they're like multiple words, like uh I don't know. There were a couple things that were like that you would find in the store that would be like, hydrochloric bleach. Like she's just like, I don't know. She said a couple things where I was like, what? She's not just like milk, eggs, ice cream, yogurt, pizza, bread. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not even like really basic shit. She gets like, her list is like a little developed. I'm almost surprised to the point where they didn't like use it as product placement and be like, and just put the feelers out for like to the food industry and be like, you pay us, we'll have Holly Hunter say your brand name, Fruit Loops, Kraft mac and cheese, you know, just like whatever, and the Philadelphia cream cheese, Yoplait yogurt. Just started like Chef Boyardee, SpaghettiOs, just like, I what are we doing? I totally would. I'm surprised that could have been the film too. Might as well have been. It's one of the dumbest things. It's actually the thing I like the least about the film. And it's funny because every time she does it, Richard Dreyfuss is like, "Oh, are you sleep shopping again?" I'm like, "What is this? This is the worst character trait to give somebody, and it's so random, and it makes no sense." And then he makes a joke later on about how she can't cook. I'm like, then why is she constantly listing off a grocery list? Like, why is that her focus in life if she can't even make toast? Like, none of this makes any sense. I don't know what happened with Steven Spielberg. I'm assuming he saw the original film at some point and was like, "Oh, this is great. Oh, but it's missing a couple things. I bet I could put my Spielberg touch on it and make this a great film." It didn't work, dude. It did not work. This is easily one of the films when, like, if you're trying to find the answer to the question of what is Steven Spielberg's worst movie, this is potentially a choice. I don't know that it is because I haven't seen 1941, but yeah, I've heard that's a mess, and that I think for me that actually will be the last Spielberg movie. I need to go through the list. I should have done that before I started recording the video and see, is there another Spielberg movie I'm missing now? Other than that, I would say I'm uncomfortable with including Close Encounters only because I saw like a cable version of it and I want to actually see Close Encounters as of this recording. Like, I want to make sure I actually watch Close, because cable edits are sometimes weird. I did see a cable edit of Close Encounters, so I don't know that I saw all of Close Encounters because I saw it on cable. So, um, that's a question mark for me. But technically, yes, that I could check that off the list. I think the other one is just, I think I only have one Spielberg film left that I need to catch up on. Anyway, always, should you watch it? I don't know. Probably, if you're trying to complete the Spielberg list. Otherwise, this is deeply forgettable, very mediocre. And I could easily show this to somebody, and if they didn't know what the film was, nobody would guess Spielberg directed this. It doesn't feel like a Spielberg directed film. It's nobody's best work. Like, not a single actor here is giving their best performance. They're all fine, but they're also not great. Like, they've all been better in other things. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's nice to see Audrey Hepburn sort of in this role, and that actually probably that was the best thing that came out of this for me, was seeing Audrey Hepburn in this experience, because I had always wanted to see some of her late stage work instead of just like the it girl of the moment, Breakfast at Tiffany's, that kind of time period for her, My Fair Lady, that stuff. But and now I got to see it. I got to see her final film. So yeah, always I'm gonna give a C plus. I feel weird giving a Spielberg film like a totally negative grade. I'm not a huge fan either of, I think until I saw Always, um, the the fourth Indiana Jones film might have been my lowest rated Spielberg film. I'm not a huge fan of that film. I just think he telegraphs the alien stuff way too early in the film. When you look at the way he structures every other film, it's too early in the film for him to telegraph that stuff. It should have come later. But anyway, as always, 35 years of always. Always and forever. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I will see you guys on the other side.